Have you achieved success and a high income, but still lack personal fulfillment and work-life balance? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful But Struggling podcast. Join us as Erin, Eunicia, Joanne, and Mim share transformative insights and practical strategies just for you. Discover real stories and lessons that will elevate your personal satisfaction, professional accomplishment, and financial empowerment.
Would you like to experience more joy during this holiday season? I am raising my hand for this podcast for sure. We have been talking in the last podcast about more serious topics. We've talked about how to deal with disasters, challenges. We talked about how to deal with your family during the holidays, which can be challenging as well. And we even talked about the holiday blues and seasonal affective disorder. So Erin and I were talking and we were thinking, what are we missing that we need to be talking about? And we're like, of course, how to have more happiness, more of a sense of fulfillment, more joy during the holidays. So I am here with my super co-host and friend, Dr. Erin Hurley. She's a pediatrician and she's also a physician coach. And this is what we're going to be talking about and sprinkling some goodness for the rest of the holiday season. So let's get to it, Erin. What do you think is important for us to be talking about this topic?
One of the things that can happen is for women physicians, we just get so busy with our regular life, things sneak up on us. And I use this term bumbling. If you go bumbling into the holiday season, you might not get what you want out of it. And we've talked a lot about this, bringing intention to it. And if you have time off, knowing what you're going to do for the time off so you can look forward to that. So let's do less of that being so busy you're not even aware. Oh yeah, it's holiday season. It's right here. And let's slow down enough to pay attention to what's going on, not just today, not just tomorrow, but in the coming weeks. And for the US, that's definitely the holiday season right around the corner.
Erin, can you define for this Puerto Rican what does bumbling mean?
Oh, bumbling. Bumbling is kind of like the absent-minded professor where you are not paying attention to anything. And so you might run into a wall or you might just stumble into something, trip over your own shoes. That's bumbling. And so sorry about that use of terminology for some those who don't understand that term. Is that more clear, Joanne?
Yeah.
Okay. That's yeah.
I just want to laugh.
Bumbling.
I just want to laugh. I have to say a little note here of like behind the scenes that Erin and I meet for this podcast and we plan ahead and we prepare and we set up a time. And then it's funny because I see Erin bumbling around, although not aimlessly, just like, let me move this light. Let me change where the little plant is. So if you are curious, you can go to our YouTube page and see the videos of this podcast and see our behinds and the different things. And we always do it to show up in the best way that we can. But now I can add a word to my vocabulary. Thank you, Erin.
And sometimes I truly am bumbling. I remember one of our last recording sessions and I'm trying to just adjust my desk by just a little bit, raising it up, and it knocks the light over. And then I'm reaching over for the light and then it tips something else over. So I was truly bumbling around. And as much as I try to get the office organized, there's always something to adjust. And Joanne, you're always so patient with me while I get it all ready. So I won't bumble through once we push record on the podcast.
We need a collection of bloopers talking about joy and happiness and laughter.
Yeah, maybe we'll put that together sometime. And I love how we can, this is something we can find joy in. We can either go like, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot every time I'm setting up my studio. Why do I do it this way? Or we can sit and laugh about it and go, gosh, can you believe we've been doing this podcast for months now? And it's still, I'm bumbling around trying to get things ready. So I prefer the latter where we have fun with it and can make fun of ourselves.
Yes. No, and we plan for it. We know what's coming.
Yeah. And I think back to in the beginning, how painful it is to be a beginner. And when we were trying to figure out all the tech, oh my goodness, I feel like I've got a PhD in podcast tech now, but I think back to a year or more ago and when we were trying to learn all these things, oh my goodness, we have come a long way for sure.
Yes. And what a beautiful example of us just choosing how to approach this, where we could choose to say, oh my goodness, this is such a difficult thing to do, and we still have technical difficulties and the internet, or then say, we are showing up, we are getting prepared, we are creating amazing content, we are reaching a lot of people, and that shift in perspective can be so helpful. And I would love for you to expand on that particularly, of how can a shift in perspective help us feel better. And we are focusing on this time of the year, but really at any point, what can you share with us, Erin?
Oh, that shift in perspective, and the word you said, I choose. And we can choose to shift our perspective. And we talk so much about mindset, and it's so key as a coach that when we can shift the mindset and perspective, everything can change. And I know for myself, as I was thinking about joy around the holidays and time with family, I thought back to we call it the COVID Christmas in our family. And I guess you could think it's kind of funny. We were flying home on Christmas Eve a few years ago, kind of when the pandemic was still going on. It was our first family trip. And my husband we had a knock on the door of our condo, and my husband had tested positive for COVID. So he was stuck out of the country, and the rest of us flew home. And shortly after we got home, my daughter and I came down with COVID as well. So on Christmas Day, the only reason we had any food in the house, because we'd been gone, was because my daughter's boyfriend had filled the fridge with some essentials for us. And we didn't know when my husband was going to make it home. And that was the Christmas that wasn't, because it was, overshadowed by COVID. And it wasn't, everybody made it home eventually. We all got over our illness. And yet when I think about the holidays, we can kind of chuckle about that holiday that was not what we expected. But we don't let it overshadow our perspective from that. We can laugh and joke about it, but we don't let it overshadow the upcoming holiday season that's coming. And we can ask, what did we learn from that? As opposed to, well, that kind of stunk, having no holiday that year.
So true, because our brain tends to find meaning by using past experiences, and that's kind of how it defines what's coming. And if we are not paying attention, it'll probably focus on the times when it wasn't as good and be, well, the last holidays have not been great. I wonder how this one is going to be, what shoe is going to drop. And it's our choice. I love that word that you pointed out, to then say, yes, right? Like, we don't have to minimize the struggle from the past, and then say, and who said that our past gets to define our future? It can be up to us.
And you can choose to let it become your future, because it can be that self-fulfilling prophecy when you say, oh gosh, the holidays are here. Oh, my family's coming. It's going to be miserable. I'm going to fight with Aunt Sue, or whatever the thing that happens every year. If you choose to have that old script write your future script, or you can say, as we always talk about, curiosity to change perspectives, getting curious and saying, I wonder what could happen if we tried this other possible thing. How might that change our outcome? Because when there's choice in front of you, am I going to choose the road on the left or choose the road on the right? And if you choose the road on the left, and that road always leads to disastrous holiday seasons, then it's up to you and those involved to say, what are the alternative paths? And please choose that one. Maybe there's no guarantee you're going to get a better outcome. But if the other road that's been fully traveled always leads to disaster, then try something new and see what might happen and play around with it. Have lower expectations, and you just might be surprised that you have a different outcome because you chose to make a different choice.
So neat. I love hearing it like that. And it makes me remember as I hear you talk about the holidays and the changes and how sometimes certain details can make a big difference. And, this is not definitely as dramatic as the whole family getting COVID, but some years ago, I moved to this house and it was the beginning of December and it was a disaster and the house full of boxes and, and I had to work. And again, like I said, this is a busy time of the year for me. And I was so discouraged. It wasn't necessarily bad. I was like, decorating is not important. I'm not really in the mood to celebrate. And I was really, now looking back, it might have been, maybe even lower the mood than what I appreciate, even though so many good things were going on. And I had this friend decorate the house for me. She said, just pay for the materials, I'll do the rest. It'll be my housewarming gift for you. And I remember coming home, and I know that this sounds small in comparison to other things, but I came home and it looked like a Christmas store in a good way, not in a bad way, in a good way. And it shifted my perspective and it elevated my mood so much. I was surprised I felt like a little girl, like, oh my goodness, I was so grateful. And it looked so beautiful for that, for weeks. And I know that's could sound like a silly example for some people, but we can think about it that way of how can we add some things to our days that can create that shift externally, and it can also help with that internal shift in perspective. And I always remember that because now I know how important that is for me. I used to do it just in quotations for the kids, and I realized, no, this is something I love. I want it too. I want my Christmas tree. And, defining what are those things for you as well.
And one of the other topics we often talk about is that resistance for help, even when it's presented right in front of you, because we're so used to being fiercely independent. And what I love is that somebody offered to help you and you said yes. And what would have happened to that Christmas, Joanne, had you said, no, I got it, I'm fine, and you didn't have any of your Christmas decor up for that holiday? How would have that colored your perspective of that Christmas so differently because of that one choice you made by saying yes to an offer of help?
Yes, and color is a good word because it would have been very dim, I would say. And maybe even colored future Christmases, right? Of then thinking like, man, it's not as exciting as before. So yes, I'm very grateful, totally grateful. And I thank you for pointing that out because it wasn't an easy thing for me to let someone do that for me. I was like, that's not important. It's no. And she was like, and she insisted, thank goodness. It's like, just let me do this for you. It's my gift for you. And, it's a good reminder. I'm glad you brought it up of asking for help and accepting help can make a big difference.
Yeah. And think about how that added to your own family tradition of we always decorate for Christmas. And I have an opposite example of that where the majority of the time, my brother and sister-in-law would get together for the holidays. They don't have kids themselves, but they enjoy being around the mayhem, especially when our kids were younger. They always made it up for Christmas. And then something happened one year. I think my sister-in-law might have been sick, and they didn't come up for Christmas because she was sick that Christmas. And that started a new pattern where they don't always come visit us for Christmas anymore. And for me, I missed that, especially as the kids are getting older. And I think like, I really missed putting on that holiday dinner and having my brother and sister-in-law there as a tradition. And yet that one little twist of fate, I believe, changed a bit of the trajectory. So also being careful about how we allow patterns to develop. Some patterns are great patterns. You had your Christmas decor even when you had just moved, versus something else happening. And I'm like, I don't love the outcome because I miss seeing my family like I used to.
How interesting. And even though we're talking about finding joy and making it a little bit more special, I have to say the holidays feel different since my dad passed away, and it's been several years now. And his birthday was January 1st. So New Year's was always this huge celebration in my family because then it was my dad's birthday. And you know what? My brother and I, talking about new traditions, thank you for making me think about this. We've made it a point to be together to celebrate and honor our dad. And it feels a little bit different. It's not with the same excitement, but it's actually more special. Like we've been with my mom, my brother and I, just kind of honoring my dad. I know it's a little poopy side note, but talking about new traditions and just creating a perspective shift.
And you also talk about bringing intention, and you don't just bumble into that time of year. It takes some planning, I would bet, to get together for that. And you recognize the importance of that. You think ahead and plan ahead so that you can bring that honor to your dad and have that special family time, which is so important because I believe as women physicians, especially as physician moms, we're often at that breakneck speed, that bullet train speed, that it gets hard to think too far in advance because we're going so fast. And yet we don't know what our future is going to hold. And so can we be better about just pausing for a moment to bring the intention that we want to our holidays or that special day and do what we can. We don't always have all of the variables. Maybe you work on the holiday you want to celebrate. It's just a day. Can you move it by a day? Can you get other people to shift it around? As healthcare workers, we're used to sometimes not having the traditional holidays off, but can we bring that intention so that we are honoring ourselves and celebrating time to be with our family?
And Erin, in what other ways we can be more intentional and make it even more likely that we can have a joyful holiday season?
A couple of thoughts. One is, you know what's coming, and what do you need to better prepare? Especially if you're working on the holidays or there's some other shifting around. So looking ahead the next couple months, looking at the schedule, and doing a little bit of planning ahead of time would be one. Another is, what do you need going into this holiday season to have joy? Do you need to shift some responsibilities or offload some responsibilities? Do you need someone to come in and help you decorate or even help you clean the house? Is there something you can delegate? Because if you need to boost your availability, your time, your energy a little bit, sometimes that means we need to let go of something else. So let's go into the season with a better buffer. And then the last one is, I would say, ask for help. Say yes to help. If somebody says, hey, can I bring something to that dinner or that meal? Hey, is there something I can do? Say yes to the offers of help. Always say yes. And then maybe say no to more of those things that are asking you for help. And with that recipe, I believe that you can do a much better job gliding into this holiday season with more ease. And when you get that help, when you have that preparation, my hope is that you can then be fully present, less worried about all the details, and you can just enjoy being with yourself, enjoy being with your family, enjoy the special time, and just be able to soak it in instead of our intellectual brains going, what's the next problem I need to solve?
I feel all the good feelings right now. This is such an inspiring podcast, and I hope that it inspired you too. And we were talking about the other side of the coin of how to find more joy and happiness during the holidays. And we emphasize the power of choosing, where you get to focus on the things that you want to focus on, how to create shifts in your perspective, because remember, the negative is available always, but so is the positive. And we're not saying ignore the negative, but make sure that you are definitely not ignoring the positive, and focus on what you want to focus on. And then some specific tools of planning ahead, asking yourself, what do I really need? And then asking for help, delegating, the thing that we struggle with a little bit more. Erin, was there something that I didn't ask you that we need to know to help us through this process?
Something that I think is often missing in medicine and even in our just modern day life is kind of ritual and ceremony. So if you don't have a family ritual, or you don't have a ritual that you do around the holidays, maybe now, or tradition maybe is the better word to say, if you don't have a tradition as a family, maybe it's time that you come up with one that is special, that you have to look forward to, and that you can reflect back upon, and kind of looking at what's your legacy that you want to leave for your future generations, for your family, and think, how can I help create a tradition that is unique and special to me and my family? That's my little challenge to you. And if you come up with something, don't hesitate to send it our way. I'd love to hear back from you about what that might be.
Embrace tradition and create new traditions. I am going to keep that. Loved it. And if you love this episode, if this was helpful, we need to ask you a favor and go to the show, scroll the way down, and please rate and review. This is the way that we get in front of more people. And please let us know if there are things that you would want us to talk about. We read all the comments and we're very excited. And stay tuned for our next episode.
Don't miss out on more strategies that will elevate you to new heights. Visit successfulbutstruggling.com now, where you'll discover exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with each of us individually. There you can dive deeper into how you, too, can take your personal and professional game to the next level. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Number 1, connect with us on the website. And number 2, tune in to the next episode.